Many people have complained that journalists can't get into Gaza, which of course is true for the most part. But an Israeli television crew uh, recently went in to Gaza and spoke to some local Palestinians who expressed views that we don't often hear. And I haven't seen this report being covered by any of the mainstream media in the West, and I don't expect to, because the things you hear there are not the kind of things that kind of fall in line with the narrative that West. Yeah, Daniel is happy with Chandler's compliment. That's nice. But anyway, okay, let's go right into the clip rather than talk about it before people know what we're talking about. Welcome to the reality show. I'm joined by Alex, Jonathan, and Daniel. Daniel, let's play the first clip.
Yeah, just a heads up, the video is cut down a little bit just for convenience, but you can find the whole video in the description.
הפעם האחרונה שלי שנכנסתי ברגל לעזה דרך מחסום ארז הייתה לפני יותר מ-15 שנה, והיום, שנה אחרי ה-7 באוקטובר, אתה כבר נכנס לתוך רצועת עזה ברגל, בטוח לחלוטין. אנחנו הולכים לג'באליה.
Volume is very low for me, Daniel. I don't know if that's for others as well.
אהלן אחי, מה קורה? לפני שנה וחודש עזה הכריזה מלחמה על ישראל. מאז המקום הזה כבר לא דומה לעצמו. הוא הרוס, סגור ומבודד. העולם כולו עוסק בעזה, אבל איש באמת לא יודע מה מתרחש בפנים. והעזתים אילמים.
Yeah, people are confirming that they can't hear. Now, it is in Hebrew, and there are subtitles, but if there's a way to raise the volume, that'd be good.
תקשורת מוטות ועיתונאים, חלקם אנשי חמאס. אף כלי תקשורת, מערבי או ישראלי, לא באמת הצליח להגיע אל העזתים, אל מסה קריטית שלהם, ולשמוע אותם, בלי פילטרים, עד היום. וזה קורה במקום שהיה מזוהה יותר מכל עם חמאס. מחנה הפליטים הגדול ברצועה, ג'באליה.
אוכלוסייה שיצאה גם מג'באליה וגם מבית לאיה. היה מאמץ לפנות אותם. חלק מתפנים בגלל זה שהם שומעים את הזחלים כבר בכניסה לכפר או לשכונה ויוצאים. חלק פשוט מקשיבים לכל המאמץ של הקריזות, פליירים וכו'. חלק פה זה משפחות, חלק פה זה מחבלים.
יש פה מחבלים בתוך הקבוצה הזו?
בוודאות יש פה מחבלים בתוך הקבוצה הזאת, כן. כנראה שמסוף היום, אחרי שנתחיל לסנן אותם ולבדוק אחד אחד, יצאו פה כמה עשרות של פעילים.
ברקע כבר רואים את האלפים.
Let's pause here just for a second, because I think that's an important point, because we've seen you know, similar videos on Western media channels, news channels, and of course it's Israel is moving civilians from place to place. They don't have a home. They've been moved 16 times or whatever. And yeah, in any such group, there are terrorists. There are people who may have participated in October 7th, who most likely participated in attacks on Israel before or since, or attacks on Israeli soldiers. So yeah, there are no, you know, massive groups of civilians where it's just civilians. Alex.
I have to say, I'm enormously skeptical of this whole thing. I'm enormously skeptical of this reporting. You know, my mind goes into two places. One, I think, okay, maybe this is part of a wider psyop, that you go and you show these broken people whose spirit is totally broken, in order to kind of encourage terrorists to just surrender, right? Rather than continue this frivolous fight. And then on the other hand, I say to myself, well, maybe it's also Channel 12 making what I can really say propaganda, trying to taste the Israeli people, okay, guys, no, listen, look, come on. Everything's normal. Look at how reasonable these people are being. They're very upset. Look at how bad everything is. Hasn't this gone on long enough? You know, it's don't let those bad, evil, right-wing people continue the war for no reason. No, I'm sorry. I've heard this all before. I really have. I've been hearing this really since I've been hearing this since 2005, since the last time I was in Gaza. You know, I remember all of this far too well. It's a little bit too familiar for me, right? When everybody, yeah.
Although we haven't heard anything you're referring to yet, but you're referring to the interviews, which are most of this report. The question in the chat, there is a link to the whole report in the video.
Razi, what I heard was the IDF identifying what we've talked about from the get-go now, that I think the gentleman's line was, it's been an effort to get them to evacuate. So you're seeing decimation that, my guess is, for at least weeks or months prior, there was like the phone calls and the leaflet drops and the announcements that IDF was coming. So these are the people that stuck around, and to which now we're going to hear from in pretty gritty detail.
Yeah, and just quickly, Yoav says in the chat, Ohad Chemo is an amazing reporter. Yotam says, Alex, Razi, have you read Ohad Chemo's book? Very shallow and Oslo-ish analysis of Palestinian society. So we have different views. I am probably more on Yotam's side. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about...
but I haven't read the book, just to say.
We'll talk about the actual individual interviews later. But just sort of, just seeing the actual pictures. And I've seen Gaza in different pictures in different interviews, but actually like seeing it like this, like really like destroyed like this, and the fact that while we'll hear some of what they say, but the fact that this wasn't enough for them to like realize, okay, something is like bad here and we need to maybe stand up, and we still haven't seen anything like it is really interesting, to say the least. And the point about it's almost listening to the IDF soldier like saying, yes, there are terrorists there and we'll probably find them later, was such a weird sort of feeling when he said it. Like he knows there are terrorists there, and it's like there's not, and I'm not saying just go and shoot down the crowd because there might be terrorists there, but sort of this idea that this whole time, basically, when the first invasion started, it's like, okay, everybody is moving that way. Then after we clear out the north, and everybody is going back, and terrorists are moving with the civilians at all times. When before the Rafah invasion, okay, let's get all the civilians out now again. And again, many terrorists are going to be among them. And this is not, again, the IDF soldier says it. He knows that there are soldiers, that there are terrorists among the civilian. Yet, the whole policy has been that pretty much we move everybody around and like slowly try to eliminate like specific cells, while the actual terrorists are actually just moving around with the civilians.
Yeah, Daniel, I want to read a few comments, but is there could you kind of move us along to the part where they start the interviews? If not, I think it's not.
I think it starts right after this, but I can move it.
So I'll quickly just read. Yoav says Ohad Chemo was called a leftist before this. Well, I would call him a leftist after this as well. Max says, put the shoe on the other foot and they wouldn't give a Jew a single drop of water or a morsel of food. You people are easily fooled. We haven't, what have we said that indicates that we're easily fooled? Listen to the analysis before, people have a lot to say about our titles. Our titles are to get you to watch the video, which you clearly got here for, and then you hear our analysis. Davy Boy says, how many Gazans opposed the October 7th massacres at the time? Good question. And Judy says, where's the hostages? Who has the hostages? Another good question. Not answered. Sorry for the spoiler in this video. Let's keep watching.
السلام عليكم حجة.
الله يرضى عليك.
شو الوضع جوا؟ تفضلي.
الوضع كله سيء يا بني، حسبي الله علشان شاطونا وقتلونا في دورنا.
ومين قتلوكوا؟
حماس.
حماس قتلوكوا؟
حماس اللي قتلتنا. حماس اللي صوابتني وقتلتنا. حماس.
حماس مسؤولة عن كل اللي بنشوفها هنا؟
كل اللي هي.
كل الدمار؟
كله هي الدمار هي.
طيب ليش ما بنسمع صوتكم؟
والله ما احنا قادرين يا خالي، والله ما احنا قادرين نتنفس.
شو؟
حسبي الله عليها حماس. ينتقم منها حماس، دمرونا
دمروا أطفالنا، دمروا بيوتنا، إحنا كنا عايشين. إحنا نهداه، أنتوا حكمونا. بدناش حماس. كل الشعب بكره حماس، إحنا مضطهدين من حماس كنا.
طب ليش ما بنسمع صوتكم برا؟ ليش؟
بنموت لو إحنا طلعنا، لو حكينا أي كلمة بقتلونا.
Okay,
أنتوا مش عارفين.
this is a good place to pause because you know, we used to have homes, we used to have a life, and now we don't, and because of Hamas. Well, yes, but the whole time that Israel wasn't acting, it wasn't that Hamas wasn't acting. You knew what Hamas was doing. You knew what they were planning, or to some extent what they were planning, and what the ultimate goal is of such planning. You knew that they were firing rockets, not enough for Israel to do what it has now done, but firing rockets with the intention and sometimes achieving the intention of killing Israelis. So yes, once Israel finally stands up for itself, you're on Israel's side, and even then, yes, it's with the IDF around and with an Israeli camera crew. So I am I'm with you, Alex. I'm very, very skeptical of this. But yeah, your thoughts on what we just saw.
It's very difficult because, I don't believe it even for a second. I even think that the interviewer is being incredibly disingenuous if he's really interviewing real Gazans, which my mind is also in two places about that. I would not be surprised if this, if this is a human intelligence operation, both for our benefit and for the benefit of Hamas. But I don't want to get conspiratorial. Let's just take it as a kind of at face value. Then I would also say, yeah, well, the interviewer is absolutely leading her to say what he wants her to say. And also, I have to also look from just a reality standpoint, right? So, she and her family are not one of the 300,000 Gazans who have left the Gaza Strip over the last 15 years, right, under the rule of Hamas, the people who really were against Hamas because they were part of, Fatah or maybe some other kind of, PLO faction, people, right? So you were only allowed to stay there if you were cooperating. This family, she's also not part of the people who left, through Egypt and was smuggled out. So it does also bring into question who exactly this individual is. Why do you stick around? Because do you have sons involved in some kind of a movement? Do you have, a husband? So I don't believe her for a second. I don't believe this whole report for a second. And it's something that, of course, I want to hear, but it's also the kind of stuff that I heard for 20 years, right? And as well, by the way, this whole thing, we're not hearing your voices. Really? Open up TikTok, open up any kind of social media, right? We're getting, okay, fine. They're under a dictatorial regime. So I cannot take anything that is going to be said seriously. Not this reporting or not what they're uploading to social media. Because there's a lot of other stuff that's saying, we love Sinwar, we're going to fight to the death. So this is an outlier. And just because I want it to be true doesn't make it true.
So I do have to push back on the idea that, maybe they're not real Gazans, just in the sense that there is no reason to, but that's the kind of thing that you need, some evidence to think, okay, let's look into that. It is everything else you said, I pretty much agree with. And yeah, by the way, on TikTok, if you're posting yourself, you can do what Channel 12 did here for some of the people interviewed, which is blur their faces. You can blur your own face on TikTok or wherever you post a video. There's ways around it. And yeah, we haven't heard these voices until now, and until talking to an Israeli reporter who is going to blur their faces, and the IDF is around. So it's very convenient.
But I also do want to say something as well as, okay, maybe somebody not being a real Gazan. I'm not saying, I have to say that we do human intelligence operations, right? To get psyops, to get people to surrender quicker, and to get the message out. So potentially this could be somebody that was picked out of a crowd and, kind of coaxed into saying something that they wanted people to say. And then they said, "We'll mask your face. Oh, you have a brother that's in administrative detention. We'll get him out." I don't know. I'm just suggesting things that I know are possible. I'm really not wanting to be conspiratorial at all.
And Jonathan, I know you have a slightly different view.
Well,
Yeah.
no, and then I have to remind our viewers, and we have viewers from all over the world, and we really need your support. Alex is coming to us from Israel, and she has a real intimate knowledge of what it's like to be living that part of the world right now. And what I'm just amazed from kind of a big picture perspective, watching some of this video, is what Rand always talked about, which is the power of ideas and how ideas move the world. Because whether or not these are plants or what, if this is a little bit set up or not, the fact is you've got these old women being moved in a wheelchair, and these people have nothing. And not too many miles to the which way, I guess the east, you have Israel and the Sheba Medical Center and like the best incredible medical technology, cutting edge medical technology, incredible life expectancy. And just you see that over and over again throughout the world, whether it's Havana, Cuba, and Miami, or North and South Korea, and then just Israel and the rest of the Middle East. Like, where there's freedom, where there's reason, there is flourishing, there's life. And whether or not this is kind of a bit of a setup, you can't deny that these people are in abject squalor, poverty, and the worst type of totalitarian mysticism, religious poor excuse for a government you can imagine. And I go back to Miss Rand, and the ideas are move the world. And I fear it's going to take more to move some of the ideas that seem to be deeply embedded in many of the Palestinian people.
Yeah, they're in squalor, poverty, and they've earned it. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the individual interviewers when we get to them, but yeah, there's also this broader picture, and I think we've done an episode about every single one of these. Gazan speaks up because one, there haven't been that many, and two, what we've always seen, it's small in numbers, it doesn't really go anywhere, and it's always Gazan speaks up. We've never seen yet Gazan fights back against Hamas. There is simply, whatever you come out from this interview, whether you believed all of them are genuine, it might just be some people are sort of, even then you have to realize, just because they stand up against Hamas doesn't mean they actually do believe in something better.
What are these mothers? I mean, this is plenty of mothers crying about their kids are lost. I mean, and their kids have been killed. Like, if they really want to birth more young men to go die again, like, I would be pretty surprised. I mean, so let's roll the tape. I feel like it's pretty dramatic, and Daniel, to your point, it's pretty intimate video.
Yeah, I just make one more point about the basically sort of them being, you could say, at the ground, like being completely destroyed now. The unfortunate reality is that the whatever crisis you're in, whatever destruction you're in, you don't get automatic knowledge of like how to get out of here. So just because these people are down, again, this doesn't automatically lead to them knowing what is the actual how do you actually get out of this place.
Let me quickly thank Mary for the super chat and thank Mark for the super chat. Mark says, Rubio is adamant on destroying Hamas. What will it take for that to happen? Well, I think the first thing it will take is not looking at Hamas alone as the enemy, but the Palestinian people. And again, this video, and the reason we're doing the show is because it's so exceptional in what we're hearing, regardless of what you think of it. It is not something that we've heard from Gazans at any point in the past 20 years. So what it would take is for that, to be true in terms of how Gazans view the situation, and for it to be true and widespread, not just a few people surrounded by the IDF and an Israeli camera crews.
Yeah, I mean, we would want to see something that happened in Iran, for example, when that girl like walked through the streets, pretty much almost, yeah, in her underwear. That was, there was no IDF around to protect her. So, and it would be good to see something more like that in Gaza. But let's continue.
الشعب غلبان، احنا الغلابة، الشعب غلبان رح
إذا رفعتي صوتك ضد حماس شو بده يكون؟
بيقتلونا، إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، قولوا يلا معاي، حماس إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، الله ينتقم منك يا سنوار، الله يشحمك يا رب، أبرك.
شو شعرتي لما سمعتي إنه إسرائيل اغتالت سنوار؟
زغرتت وانبسطت.
بس 17 أنتوا كنتوا فرحانين. لا بعدين
لا مش فرحانين، لا والله ما احنا فرحانين، والله ما احنا فرحانين، صغارنا واطفالنا والله ما احنا فرحانين، والله بكينا وعيطنا يوم 7 اكتوبر، والله ما احنا فرحانين، احنا فرحنا اللي تفتح الطريق ونشتغل وناكل ونشرب، والله ما احنا مبسوطين، اللي بيقول لك احنا مبسوطين كذاب والله مش هنشطين.
بس في حكي عن مقاومة وحماس.
لا ولا حماس ولا مقاومة فيش عندنا.
مين المسؤول اللي بنشوف الآن؟
ابن القحبة السنوار اللي يحق عليه طلع ايش عمل فينا. لعن ابوي.
بتحبش سنبار؟
سلام بدي اروح انا. خلص سلام.
جد؟
كله يلحق عليه.
شو القصة؟ انتوا كنتوا فرحانين 17، شو صار؟
ايش شو صار؟ زي ما انت شايف، زي ما انت عملتوا فينا. بغيتونا.
אנחנו ניגשים אליהם, מבלי שיש לנו מושג מה אנחנו הולכים לשמוע. פשוט נותנים להם לדבר. והם מדברים בקול אחיד. כבר לא חוששים, לא מבקשים לטשטש פנים או זהות. ייתכן שזה מעיד על החלשות חמאס, ייתכן שזו דווקא עדות לייאוש שלהם, לתחושה שאין להם מה להפסיד. כנראה שמדובר בשילוב של השניים. ולמרות הכל, אנחנו בחרנו לטשטש את פניהם של אלו ששברו את מחסום הפחד.
كيف للآن سنة وشهر من بداية الحرب كيف ما شفنا أي قوة داخلية محلية اللي بتطلع على حساب حماس؟
ما بنقدر.
ليش؟
ما بنقدر، حماس مستخدم القوة في كل مكان.
لسه؟
لا ما زالت، يعني أنا مثلا بدي أروح أهتف ضد حماس، يلعن بحكم حماس بهتف، بس بعد شوية
ايش بصلحينه بتخوك؟
ما بجرى، ما بعرف ايش اللي بجرالي، فبالتالي عشان انا احافظ على حياتي بضلني ساكت.
كيف انت مش خايف من حماس؟ كيف مش خايف تحكي اللي بتحكي؟
انا حاليا مش خايف من حماس لانه حماس تقريبا مش زي قبل. يعني حماس اول الحرب مش زي حماس اليوم احنا من الحرب سنة وشهر.
ضعفاء؟ ضعفاء؟
تقريبا.
نتنياهو لو بده نقوا الزين من
Okay, actually that point, if you can rewind a couple of seconds before we play again, was interesting, the next point. But yeah, I mean, come on. Okay, yeah, they didn't celebrate on October 7th. I'm sure maybe there were some individuals somewhere in Gaza who weren't celebrating on October 7th because they were busy or something. But I really I struggle to believe, and if you say you as in you, the Palestinian people, please acknowledge that you did celebrate, and if you have changed your mind, great, but too late. Alex.
Well, I'm just interested in how that, very desperate, very sad woman had a bag from Oshel ads in her hand as she's, wandering out. Very, very interesting because, it's Oshel ads is, I don't think they have an Oshel ads inside of Gaza. I'm assuming they don't. It's Oshel ad is like how do you call it? It's a supermarket, but it's not like a regular one that you just see everywhere. Typically, it's a supermarket that larger families enjoy going to and shopping at because it's a little bit cheaper. And I saw that in her hand, and to be honest, it made me feel a little bit nauseous. Yeah, well, what a wonderful show. What a great scene of desperation and sadness. And what do I believe was Channel 12's intention with a video like this? It's an interesting piece to actually be showing us in the middle of this extremely censorious public debate about whether or not we should continue the war, or whether or not our goals have been achieved, or maybe are we supposed to just kind of suspend reality as we did during Oslo, and as we did during the disengagement, and as we did in 2014 when they told us, during Operation, I think it was Protective Edge, we were told in 2014, after I think it was a month, that Hamas has basically been destroyed. It's basically over. And so, well, I don't think so. I find it actually pretty insulting. And if it insults my intelligence, and I think I'm a very ordinary representation of an Israeli, I don't know who this is fooling. Maybe it's been created for a foreign audience, or maybe for an audience that hasn't really experienced the peace from the Palestinians.
Can I just ask, context, is Channel 12 like a left-wing type thing? Okay, so give us
all but one of the channels on Israeli television are left-wing. I do want to say just quickly on Alex's point, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you see that's in Hebrew in Gaza because Israel feeds and clothes its enemies, unfortunately. So yeah, that is not that uncommon.
Mm-hmm. It's not a smoking gun.
Yeah. Jonathan.
And it's how to change a culture is the issue here, and we've often recommended Nothing Less Than Victory, John David Lewis's book. John David Lewis is a deceased objectivist who wrote a brilliant treatise about winning a war and gave a whole historical evaluation of that. We'll put it in the notes for people to check out. But I guess I have such empathy for Alex and for Israel. I mean, as she said, this is not a one-off. This has been going on since Rand identified it on Donahue in the 1970s. And, I guess, I don't know, I'm speaking selfishly here. I know if someone made me pull a big, heavy cart of goods through the desert heat in sand, I would be pretty pissed off and say, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that again. So my one hope, and maybe I'm a fool, Alex, is my one hope is that are the Palestinian people starting to, maybe they haven't finally learned their lesson, but are they starting to learn their lesson? These people have nothing. They are being dragged through the desert. They don't have any home. That's a fact. A lot of these people have lost their children. I mean, hopefully they're starting to learn it. Or is that what? I mean,
recruitment is up. I mean, recruitment is up, in Hamas. They took the money from selling the foreign aid and used it to pay the salaries of the recently recruited fighters. So, and it's not that easy to convince somebody by force to come and, be part of the resistance movement, right? You got to kind of entice them in and brainwash them. And, hey, I'm going to pay you $1,000 for helping me. So yeah, recruitment's up, right? So the movement's alive. I don't know.
Yeah, and a point I would make about them learning their lesson. I mean, look,
it's like it starts with women losing their children. I mean, it starts with this being happening to families, and
it's a start in the very, very early stages. Like, look, the way I see it, later on, I'm not sure we're going to get to this, but there is a point where somebody's crying, as somebody here said, it's very annoying. Fair Lunch Lady said, I turned off the sound, the whining is so grating, they all need speech lessons. No, I think that this is a tactic, because we see this on Western reporting. They always cry, and there's a point where they ask for water and the soldiers give them the water. My policy would be, yes, 1 bottle of water per 1 hostage released. Thank you, Laura Seto, for the super chat. Larisetto says, please trust me, I'm an enthusiastic non-troll super chat. Best regards. Thank you. And thank you, Kathleen, for the super chat. And let me just, if that sounded like I'm in favor of negotiating for the hostages, hopefully that's not what it meant. I'm assuming none of these people have any hostages. So if they go personally and find them and release them, then I will happily pay for the bottle of water. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to that, whenever we hear sort of Palestinians speaking out, it's always, now we've been destroyed. And it's like, you had no problem before October 7 with what Hamas has been doing. Hamas has been sending rockets into Israel for pretty much since as soon as they came into power. There was the Great March of Return. There was the, as Alex mentioned earlier, there was the Operation Protective Edge, which was, again, that was preceded by Hamas aggression towards Israel. So this has been happening. And again, it wasn't a problem until they actually received some some consequences for their actions. So the sort of, we are talking about these interviewers, but as I think we've talked about on the production meeting, fundamentally nothing should change when it comes to Israel's, well, something should change when it comes to Israel's strategy, but actually trying to finish this war. But this shouldn't make it seem like it's milder. There are still Palestinian, as we've said, there are still Palestinians holding the hostages. Now, thankfully, UNRWA has been banned, and we'll see what this goes, because it's supposed to, I think they have like 3 months to get out or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But again, fundamentally, it's the ideas that drive the society, and the biggest problem is that the Palestinians, and because it was never expected of them, it's never expected of we talk about oftentimes it's talked about sort of determination, that all societies should have a right to determination. They should have elections. They should have they should have a democratic systems. But there's no underlying ideas that drive it, and there is no expectation for them. The calls are for a Palestinian state. We don't care if it's going to be another Iran. Palestinians should have a state, and it can be just whatever it wants, instead of even if you advocate for the Palestinian state, advocating, well, it should be individual rights protecting first and foremost, and then you talk about the other stuff. But that's not the requirement. It's just they deserve it because they are Palestinians.
Also, I just want to say, Daniel, that's been massively misreported in the press. The Knesset passed a law that required them to ban UNRWA in Jerusalem, but it doesn't have any effect on Judea and Samaria or Gaza. That's not what that, I know it's very frustrating. So, they're being forced to shut their office in a very, nice neighborhood in Jerusalem, and to, get the F out and stop brainwashing the citizens of Jerusalem. Thank you very much. And Israel even said, we will handle their education through the municipality. There's no food shortage here. Enough, right? Kind of the jig is up, but it's not going to have the effect on, where it is required the most, but it's a start.
Just later in this, don't they call for it? They say we want an Israeli civilian force.
Yeah. So I actually, we can address that quickly. I want to say, I just want to say, Yotam says, I find I-24 to be pretty neutral. Razi, yeah, I was mentioning the channels, and I said channel 14 is the only one that isn't left-wing. I-24, is it on television in Israel now, or is it just, I assume
Yeah, they have it. I think they do have a channel, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I will agree with that comment. And WUB says...
I have to give a shout out to Mark because I gave a challenge for some super chats. Mark Goodkin, thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's his, I believe, second super chat on this show, and there was one on the Daily Objective. WUB says it is a propaganda war that Israel got better at. This is pro-Israel propaganda. This is absolutely not pro-Israel propaganda. This is okay, see, they're on our side, we can stop the war propaganda. So no, this is not this does not move public opinion in Israel or elsewhere in the direction that the right thing for Israel to do is to double down on this war, fight it with kind of without Israel's hands tied behind their back, and expand it to Judea and Samaria, because if Palestinians there get away with it, then there will be an October 7th style attack, and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, even assuming that it was made as a propaganda, it's like propaganda for like it's for like the Spanish governments and the Norwegian governments, the ones that are pushing against Israel. It's propaganda for people who will never care for Israel, will never actually, change their opinion about Israel. No one looks at this and saying, oh, Palestinians are actually pro-Israel now and are actually standing for Hamas. I'm gonna change my opinion on Israel. It's simply not the case.
Well, I do have to say, Alex takes a page out of the book of Jonathan Honig super chatting while being on a show. Alex says, Alex only makes excellent points and is never wrong. Well, any point made in a super chat is absolutely never wrong, except, we have gotten troll super chats in the past. But so thank you, Alex, for the super chat. There was, I think, something else, but anyway, should we go to the next clip, and whatever we have to say, we can say later.
وشهر
ضعفاء
ايه
ضعفاء
تقريبا.
نتنياهو لو بده النقا والزين من الاول، ما كان من الاول خلص. هو اللي مون حماس، وهو اللي اعطى حماس، هو اللي كان يجيب لهم المصاري من قطر، هو كان يجيب لهم المصاري من قطر، هو اللي قواهم.
ليش ضليتوا للآن هاني في المخيم؟
وأنا جوزي معاق، فخفت أرمي من الكتر، الناس ما بتقول على المعبر بيرموا المعاقين، فأنا خفت أرمي جوزي.
كيف الحياة هان المخيم بالأشهر الأخيرة؟
فيش أكل ولا شرب، وخوف ورعب وجوع، وما فيش أكل عنا.
حماس شو عملوا؟
نكبتنا،
الله ينكبهم زي ما نكبونا.
ناس دمرتنا، احنا شعب غلبان، حماس أكلتنا، أكلت كابوناتنا، أكلتنا حماس. حكومة سافلة حماس، إرهابية حماس، بيدوا حماس عن الوجود. احنا معكم، احنا معكم، احنا معكم.
انتوا معنا؟ يعني انتوا مع إسرائيل؟
مع إسرائيل، خيرنا منكم. احنا جوز ما يشتغل عندكم، انتوا الخير عندكم، انتوا البركة.
All right, dude, this is a family show. And anyway, Daniel, I think I take back my request that you raise the volume. Jesus, that was loud. Yeah, no, come on. I don't know. Yeah, technically they're right. They are better off if Israel controls Gaza. But I'm not convinced that they actually know it rather than are just saying it. Alex.
Yeah, it also kind of is pretty incredible that that Channel 12 that has had a holy jihad against Netanyahu finds a way, even in this short segment, to just really dig it in there. Like, yeah, and Netanyahu, he took the money from Qatar. It's like they gotta manage to get that in, right? And that's for the domestic audience, of course, right? But it's not a lie. No one is that is a very true statement. But I just find that really quite funny. And they really should have also included in that. And Benny Gantz was the best ever Ramatkal. He was the best one, and I think he should be the prime minister, or Yair Lapid. Either one is fine with me. But you have so Bibi. I mean.
And the firing of Gallant, they didn't comment on that.
Yeah, they didn't talk about the firing of Gallant. They cannot. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's interesting that they kind of sound like they are, supporting Israel's war effort, led by Netanyahu. So yeah, it's interesting.
No, they're against the war effort. If it's being led by Netanyahu, but if it wasn't, if he just wanted peace, then it would just be, we would be totally copacetic. Like, we would be just kumbaya, and we wouldn't even need to have a border. On October the 7th would be like, it's just like, it's just a little argument we had. and now everything's going to be fine because there's no Hamas, who are the problem, and no Netanyahu, who's also a problem. And there you go. It's tied up in a nice little bow. Like, here, Israelis, yeah, we think that you are brain dead. There you go. Enjoy.
Quickly before I go to Jonathan, Daniel, I wasn't joking. Please do lower the volume. Oh, I am the one who asked to raise it. My apologies, but yeah, Jonathan.
Well, the little clip in there that I like, that I actually thought it probably is true, is the woman says, "My husband worked for you." Remember, she says, "My husband worked for you," and it made me think, like, yeah, I mean, Israel is this little beacon of entrepreneurship and trade, and here you have a culture that is all about businesses and trade and building things and IPOs and just this tremendous wealth creation, and people with an effing donkey and nothing else in the middle of the sand, religious mysticism. Like, this is what you get. You don't get trade. You get communities and cultures like force and misogyny and just, I mean, mysticism, and this is what you get. It just kind of defines that culture that, Razi, I know you like to quote from the Donahue interview, but, Miss Rand identified that in, what was it, 1982 or 3? And she says, why do you support Israel? You have this country that is bringing modernity, culture, reason to the Middle East as against savages who, and I think Rand says something like, they haven't changed for decades. And I look at this video and I think, well, they haven't changed even now. And this is 40 years more.
I also just wanted to say something, Jonathan. I don't think that she was meaning that her husband had some kind of business with the Israelis, or, he was obviously an informant, right? Like, for the
didn't get that.
That's totally what I got. That's totally the understand. Yeah. That's what I got from it.
So my assumption was she meant, he had a working visa or whatever, because thousands of Gazans would come into Israel before.
No, but what does he mean? He worked for you, to a soldier.
You,
No,
all Jews are the same for them.
I don't think so. Because no, it was the way she said it. She didn't say it like she was saying like the plural, which is like, atem, like in Hebrew you would say, like, in Hebrew there's two ways to say you. There's you singular and there's you plural. She said you plural. It was I very much got the understanding she meant that he was that her husband was an informant.
Well,
so who knows?
Way,
we'll never know.
For people studying Hebrew, there's 4 ways to say.
Oh, okay, fine, yeah, because you got female,
singular, masculine, and feminine, and then in plural as well. So, yeah, good luck to the people studying Hebrew. Just quickly, thank you, Boris, for the super chat. Boris says, if Israel depends on America providing weapons, how can it act independently and ignore America's demands? It can't, which is why I think it is reconsidering whether it should depend on America. Yeah, you can't, Israel probably got lucky with the recent election, but you can't kind of build your whole defense policy on something like that. Daniel.
Yeah, and just going back, these people, well, not specifically these people, but Gaza used to be under Israel, and you could say, oh, well, some of them are calling for it back. It was better under Israelis. Let's bring it back. But again, there's even if Israel takes over, there's gonna be problems. And will you actually stand by that? Will you actually stand by, okay, we still remember what Hamas did. Let's, Israel, it's gonna be an occupation. We won't be full-on citizens. That's just a fact of reality that we have to acknowledge. Similar thing that, the Germans and Japanese people had to acknowledge. Okay, we are gonna be living under occupation. That's just a fact now. And will that basically prevail? Will they, someone's so saying they should read Book of Daniel, so I got confused. But will they actually realize that, yes, this occupation by Israel, it will be also difficult, but we recognize that this is going to something better. We can live like Arabs in Israel proper. We might be able to achieve that. Will they actually realize that, or will it be, okay, now Israel is the is the one that's oppressing us. So we're gonna stand behind Hamas or stand behind Fatah or stand behind any other terrorist, Palestinian Jihad, any other terrorist group that decides that no, Israelis are actually the worst ones now.
Yeah. Yotam says he probably worked in the kibbutzim. Yeah, so there were Gazans working in the kibbutzim. By the way, many of them, we don't know what this guy was, but many of them very much helped map out the kibbutzim. They were working for Israelis, but they were helping in the planning of October 7th.
But
Hamas
wouldn't have let you get, I'm sorry, Hamas would not have let you get a work permit to go to the kibbutzim if you were not greasing their palms in some way. They didn't let people that they didn't trust, they didn't give them, the privilege to go and work for this. So I don't want to let's be frank and realistic, I think.
Well, I was going to say let's hear some more of them, but let's read some more of them and hear a bit less of what they have to say.
وشو بالنسبة للمقاومة أو حماس اللي بيحميكوا؟
عليها كذابين، بدناش إياها، دمرتنا بدناش إياها. انتوا صح، انتوا صح، انتوا صح، بدناش حماس، تسقط حماس، والله لا أشوف حماس لا أقتله. والله فرحت لما قتلتوا الصنوار اللي دمر وقتل اطفالنا. والله العظيم زغرتت، والله العظيم زغرتت.
رسالتك للشعب الاسرائيلي اللي بيشوفك الان؟
يا رب يا رب يرجع لكم اولادكم ويعم السلام ونكون صحبه احنا وانتم. فيش بعد السلام.
هذا شيء واقعي؟
والله شيء واقعي.
هذا اللي شفنا في 7/10 بس
الله يجعله ما يصير. الحمد لله ان شاء الله بتمحوهم. ان شاء الله بتمحوهم. ضلكوا وراهم لغايه ما تقتلوهم. سيبنا بيوتنا دمروها عروس. يا رب تلقاهم القصر 15 من اليهود. اليهود احسن. الله ونعم الوكيل.
All right. You know what? I want to stop here. And Daniel, if we do play some more of this clip, if you can skip that kid, I don't like that stuff. Come on. Yeah. The more I watch of this again, the more really propagandistic. Let's ask what are we supposed to take from this? Let's say we say, okay, this is Gazans, and this is representative of what Gazans think. What it basically says is, okay, we've done enough. We have people who can replace Hamas with the most pro-Israel government in the world, So let's withdraw. Let's agree to a ceasefire. I mean, that is the conclusion that we are being asked to make by this story, as far as I can tell. Alex.
Yeah, and it's just even the same way that she's trying to say, she made like a zachruta, like the, when Sinwar was killed. I mean, do you really have to get so over the top and so ridiculous? I mean, it's totally pathetic, really. And yeah, I didn't want to see the little boy because it was very exploitative. I think that somebody saying in the chat that this was pro-Israel propaganda. No, this was propaganda for the Israelis. They handpicked all of these people who had exactly the same opinion, exactly the same, exactly the same words almost that they're using. The Israel, I mean, they're not wrong. They're saying all of the right things, all of the things that we want to hear and we want to believe. But let's not forget that we've been told these things many, many times in the past, that we just want peace and coexistence. Well, yeah, what does peace and coexistence mean? That means something very particular to me. It means that I can go into your neighborhoods where you live. It means that, your kids can marry my kids. I mean, that's coexistence. It's like, it means a real something. What does coexistence mean to her? Does that mean that we don't hang each other from lampposts? That we live in our own, that we have a nice big wall in between us? Is that coexistence? There's a saying in Arabic, I think I've mentioned it before, that you cannot give what you don't have. And within Arab society, all we ever see is clan fighting, clan sectarianism, tribalism, and all of it's, competing for, and I think it really does come because of the agriculture of the Middle East and the fact that people war over water, but that's just taking it to one side. So I don't think that she knows what coexistence is, and she cannot give me the coexistence that I understand.
I want to quickly respond to a comment by Mark. I hate to disagree with our super chatters, but Mark says, I think Israel would help Gaza, would help Gaza set up a provisional government to govern itself, one favorable to Israel. Okay, you said would, I read it as should, so I'm not sure we disagree. But yeah, I really hope that's not the case. I think that's probably where it's going. But haven't we done that enough? Like, haven't we said, okay, look, there's an enemy that's against us, but they have the right to self-determination. They've governed themselves. They governed themselves, in Gaza until recently, and still in some places. They governed themselves in the West Bank. Arab countries govern themselves. No. Gaza has had its chance, and it's over. It should be over, or we will see another October 7th, not immediately because Israel has caused a lot of damage, but it should be never again, not again for a while. Jonathan.
Well, I have to say, some of this video reminds me, again, let's put the context. These are people walking with Israeli soldiers all around them. Right. I think, Alex, to your point, they're not going to say, oh, yeah, let's finish off the Jews. Somebody give me a weapon. They're going to say that. And it reminds me a little bit of, I was trying to think of this and I found it. Dr. Peikoff's podcast, episode 41, December 22nd, 2008. He was asked about John McCain in captivity. And Dr. Peikoff's point was, and I'm summarizing probably pretty poorly, but basically when you're in captivity, you say whatever your captors want. Oh, I love the Viet Cong. America is terrible, to get out of the situation. So I can't deny that there's some of that probably going on here. Look, they're being interviewed by Israeli TV. They're going to say, oh, we love you, we want peace. But at the same time, I go back to the reality that I hope that they see Israel living in wealth, living in modernity, and see themselves living in squalor and perhaps in losing children, losing family members, losing limbs, and hope that some of that over some period of time can start to sink in.
Quickly, Mark says, what? No more super chat for you. Just kidding. Well, speaking of me misreading things, I read that no more soup for you. So thank you. And Boris says, they don't have a right to self-determination. Yeah, you don't have a right, to say, okay, look, this is who we are. Our self-determination is we want to exterminate the Jews. Okay, well, that's who you are. Then the Jews have a right to defend themselves, as those who don't think Israel has a right to defend itself often say. And the Palestinian, as we've said on this channel, the Palestinian people are the enemy, and this video doesn't change my view on that. Daniel.
Yeah, there is no right to self-determination. You have a right, if there is any right to establish a nation, it's to establish an individual respecting society, not to establish a dictatorship just to basically not even undermine but completely destroy the individual rights. And I'm not sure what solution to Gaza is the most popular one in the international community, but I know the Palestinian Authority is always brought up. And look into the Palestinian Authority, how Palestinians in there are actually, they have the pay to slave program where their welfare is basically, if you kill Jews, you can retire now. If an Israeli or if a Jew randomly goes into a Palestinian town like Ramallah, they might get lynched because that's just what happens if you're a Jew. We've even talked about some interviews from the streets from different towns under the Palestinian Authority. And, do you see any sort of like, oh, now that we are here, yes, we do want peace with Israelis. We do want, we do want to live side by side. No, hate Israelis, and they actively hate Jews. There is no other way around it. And saying, now these people, they kind of like Israelis now, so let's give it back to the Palestinian Authority, as if that won't just bring in, just reinforce the hatred.
We are out of time, and so we won't play any more of this. But you can find the whole thing in the description. I think it's worth watching, but worth watching with a critical eye, as is everything. Somebody in the chat says, "Is Daniel became a Muslim?" I don't know what that means.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, Alex may have, but no, I don't fully understand the comment because it's not grammatically correct, but Daniel might be able to answer that. Anyway, Alex, where can people find more from you, or is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, just kind of final thoughts on this. Yeah, so there's been a really big push in the media recently that Israel has to start letting the Red Cross visit the Nukba terrorists who were captured on October 7th. And the reason that it's very important that they do that is because the Red Cross has to get their form stamped, so that the coffers know who to start paying the pay for slay money into, because they don't know who died on October 7th, who's in jail, who's in here, who's in there. So I think that's something that we have to be really raising awareness about this. And I do also want to recommend, hopefully before they're sanctioned, Regavim, who have some very interesting reports about the Palestinian Authority and the Pay for Slave program and the Palestinian police. And for everything related, I would say to the defense strategy, I would recommend Habithonistim, which is IDSF. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Just after looking at some of the video today, and thanks to everyone for participating. I mean, I just am kind of in such awe of Western culture, because you see it as juxtaposed against the cesspool that is basically everything in the Middle East ex-Israel. This Islamist, mystical, poverty, tribal barbarism that, as Rand says, hasn't changed in years. And it's so distasteful that my hope is people will pick up something of Ms. Rand's, which is a new textbook of Americanism, in which she highlights the brilliance of American ideas and Americanism and what that means. So it's at Amazon, and I hope our viewers check it out.
Daniel, where can people find you?
Yeah, I quickly on Jonathan's point on the juxtaposition, because some people might say, well, in Middle East, if you go to the capitals, they're like beautiful cities, but you have to realize those are like actual monuments to that. They are sort of like pyramids of Giza, like a testament to what they were actually. I think there is one Central Asian nation, I don't know which one, which is like a dictatorship, and they have like a beautiful capital, like made of marble, like really incredible. But it's no one lives in those buildings, and it's really almost dystopian. When you look at New York, people actually live and work there.
Monument builders. That's Rand's essay.
And also on the earlier comment, a guy doesn't shave for like 3 days and all of a sudden he's a Muslim. I've been atheist all my life. But I'll shave.
He's lying. He's trying to cover. And he's saying that we need to go to Tajikistan. It's all falling into place now. We're on to you.
Someone says Tajikistan in the chat, so it might be that one. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damn Dan. Everything is going to be in the description.
Well, being a panelist on this show is not that easy, and not just because people accuse you of becoming a Muslim or various other things, but sometimes it's because the producers of this show demand that people on the panels watch stuff that is much worse than what we had to watch today, like the content we will have to watch for tomorrow's show. It is very unfortunately, I don't even know who's on. I know I'm on, but whoever is on tomorrow will be in their preparation watching Piers Morgan's interview with Dan Bilzerian. Yes, Jonathan, you have a hand in this. You sent it to me, and you're one of several people who sent it to me. And at some point, I'm like, you know what? I'll watch it. And for me, the topic of the
Lost Nile is somehow cool now.
yeah,
Why?
but for me, the topic there, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow, but the topic is Piers Morgan and the fact that he allows this. And but I'll say more tomorrow, which is a reason to, of course, like and share this show and comment on it, but also like tomorrow's show. I don't know if we already have it, but we will soon. And yeah, thank you, PC, for another super chat. TC says, just saw a video, a guy with no top on, dancing for Palestine, vomiting emoji. Well, thank you for not sending that to us. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow on the Daily Objective and the Reality Show.